What Paul talks about here is peace with God. He's talking about an objective fact. In verse 10 of the text that we read, he speaks of being reconciled with God. To be reconciled means that you have two sides that are at odds. They are enemies, as he refers to them there in verse 10 and 11. They are enemies, but they are reconciled. They are brought together. And the thing that separated them was taken care of. And often a mediator is involved in reconciling two sides. And the Bible tells us that Jesus is the mediator. It is through Jesus that these two sides were reconciled. The thing that separates us from God is the fact that we are a sinner. In the first 3 chapters, Paul established the fact that all of us are sinners. None of us escape that. All have sinned and come short of the glory of God. All of us are separated from God. But Jesus comes to deal with our sin, and in the process, when we place our faith in him, he brings these two enemies together. So ultimately, Paul says we are at peace with God, and when he says that, he says we are no longer enemies. Now, it's really interesting as Paul is writing this, he kind of anticipates some of the challenges that people are having because many of the Jews, especially in the church in Rome, they were so convinced that salvation comes by works. We have to keep the law. We have to do this and we have to do that. There are many of you that are here today, and your concept of salvation has been the same thing. As long as we do more good than bad, one day we'll get to heaven and God puts all the good we did on a divine scale, and as long as it outweighs the bad, everything's good. And the problem with that is that there is no security. We never know if we've done enough. And Paul comes along to say, no, it's not by works. It's not by what you've done. It's by faith. And he gives an illustration in chapter 4 of Abraham. So this is what the Jews are thinking now. Okay, if we're not saved by what we do and how we live our life, or because we've been baptized, or all those things that we associate with salvation, if we're really saved by faith, what's to keep God from getting mad at us if we do something wrong and calling the whole deal off? What about, how's God gonna? And so Paul says, just so that you understand, you were enemies of God, and he has given to you peace. We are at peace with God now.